Hey, I want to talk a little bit about today's developments and also an issue I feel quite strongly about because I'm getting fed up with it. Firstly, the issue I want to talk about regarding developing news is that Russia has begun bombing Syria. Officially, this has been with the sanction of President Assad. At least that's what the Russians are saying. Um, and of course, there's different pieces of information coming from different sources. Russia Today claims that they're bombing ISIS, but other sources, Western sources, are saying that it's possible the actual target is anti-Assad rebels. Um, Although they also pointed out that some of these groups are also wanted by the United States, the likes of the Al-Nusra Front, which is said to be a branch of Al-Qaeda. Okay, so that's today's development. As if the Middle East couldn't get any more crowded with countries bombing other countries. We have France in bombing runs in Syria, Russia now. I think the United States and the UK has been intermittently doing bombing runs. Turkey is bombing northern Iraq, taking on the PKK, and of course Saudi Arabia is continuing to bomb Yemen. So the whole region is, well, it always is, but especially now it's in a tinderbox situation. Um, The main issue I want to talk about in this video is what I consider to be Russian hypocrisy. Um, I'm saying this partly because I'm frustrated with the Russian government's hypocrisy, but also because I figure there's a lot of very ignorant people out there who blindly support Putin in everything he does, and I'm sick of it. Um, I came across a video from the UN Putin speech, and I had to get off it because I was just so frustrated with all these comments of blind adulation, comments like Putin is the leader of the free world, Putin is a great humanitarian leader, may Allah bless Putin, etc., 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 and went on and on and on like that. Um, these people seem to be profoundly ignorant. Incidentally, I didn't notice any Syrians there. Um, but what frustrates me is they seem to think Putin can do no wrong. Now, if that isn't blind adulation, I don't know what is. But let's digest this a little bit. Um, as Obama pointed out, and people are going to call me biased, but as Obama pointed out, this civil war began when the Assad regime decided to use brute force against protesters. ISIL, ISIS, Daesh were not in Syria in a big way in 2010. That's irrefutable. It's irrefutable. It started to get much more ground after 2012. Now, is anyone going to seriously deny that? Putin has demonstrated hypocrisy throughout this. For example, a few years ago, he had that well publicized press conference with Cameron, and he basically tried to humiliate Cameron, saying, "You are funding cannibal eating rebels," because there'd been disturbing footage of one rebel eating someone's heart. It is very grisly footage, but I think that's rank hypocrisy because Moscow, from the beginning of this war, has been funding the Assad regime with weapons, and no serious person can deny that the Assad regime has murdered thousands of civilians with their barrel bombs, indiscriminate bombing of civilian areas. Can anyone dispute that? So I think it is rank hypocrisy for Russia to make itself out to be the pacifist player in this and to be the great peacemaker when they have been fueling this damn war from the beginning. That's irrefutable. Now, yes, you can accuse Western countries of fueling it as well by funding the rebels, but if that's your position, then at least be consistent. What I cannot stomach, quite frankly, is the hypocrisy of those who preach peace and then turn a blind eye to Russia's very dubious role in this. Not only do they turn a blind eye to it, but they openly praise Putin. It makes me so angry because it's just so hypocritical. It's irrefutable that Russian funded weapons have killed civilians in this war. Lots of civilians. And that is also a big cause of this humanitarian crisis. It's not the only cause. A lot of the people are also fleeing ISIS, but it's definitely a contributing factor. So I just think this is rank hypocrisy. As for today's events, what's too early to tell, you know, two sides are saying different things. Maybe Russia is bombing ISIS. Maybe they're bombing rebels. They have said, according to their reports, most of the moderate rebels have now disbanded. That's probably true. Not helped by Russia. You know, if Russia had come to collective condemnation of the Assad regime at the beginning. And by the way, to those who want to make excuses for the Assad regime and who want to say that it's innocent, ask the average Syrian what they think of the Assad regime. Because every Syrian I've come across, hand on heart, has been extremely critical, if not they outright hate the Assad regime. I'm yet to see a Syrian in person say that, oh, Assad's a good guy fighting terrorists. The reality is a lot more complex than that. Now, propaganda machines like Russia Today, and to a lesser extent Chinese networks, make Assad out to be an embattled president protecting his people from terrorists. The truth is he is a terrorist himself in terms of what the sort of terror he's exacted on the civilian population of Syria. His secret police, the Shabiha, are thugs who went around in the early stages of the war terrorizing people. Hundreds of people went missing. Thousands probably were tortured. Um, and Moscow has supported all of this. So yes, you can point fingers at the West and say that the West has fueled the war. You could point to the West's relationship with Saudi Arabia. I've made my position clear on that. I think we're too close to the Saudi regime. But what I'm saying here is it's not inconsistent to say that acknowledging whatever faults the West has made and also condemning Russia. I don't think that's inconsistent. But these brainwashed sheep who follow Putin, and I'm sorry, but that's how I see them. They seem to be utterly brainwashed. Just can't see the bigger picture. To them, this war began 2 years ago, not 5 years ago. To them, Putin has done nothing wrong. They cannot seem to see that by funding the Assad regime, it fueled the war. And the hypocrisy really pisses me off because the same people come out with statements like Russia's the leader of the world and so on. Let's look at Russia's other record outside Syria. Let's look at its invasion of Ukraine, sovereign nation. Again, people are going to say, oh, what about America? What about America? My purpose with this video is not to defend America, right? My purpose is to challenge those who are hell-bent on defending Russia. Because as far as I'm concerned, it's just as bad, if not worse. So well, that's what pisses me off. I don't mind people condemning America or Britain. I don't have a problem with that because I'm the first to admit our countries have done dubious things, okay? But the fact of the matter is, Russia is absolutely hell-bent on getting its influence in Eastern Europe, whether people there want it or not. That Crimean referendum was completely rigged. You know, pro-Ukrainians were threatened away from the referendum. It was not a fair referendum at all. Um, there's no question about it. Russian mercenaries are on the ground. There's no one looking at the situation objectively would honestly deny that. So, to all extents and purposes, Russia has invaded Ukraine. It's still there, incidentally. Um, and many parts of Eastern Europe have expressed deep concern at Russia's actions. Of course, you'll find some people in Russian-speaking populations who will support Moscow for various reasons. But in the end of the day, Russia is trying to throw its weight around in the region. Now, you could say that NATO has been doing likewise, and perhaps NATO expansion eastwards can be criticised. But it's Russia that invaded Ukraine, not NATO. And this has been consistent in Russia's actions to smaller neighbouring states. It happened in the Georgian Republic as well. So I'm sick and tired of people making out Russia to be the great peacemaker. Russia's role in the world not only is very influential, it is very warmongering. And I'm sick and tired of people coming out with double standards on this. And that includes the likes of the Stop the War Coalition, whose sole agenda is demonizing Western countries. They completely turn a blind eye to Russia. As for Britons, who constantly praise Putin and constantly denounce this country, you know what? Fuck you. Why don't you just go and live in Moscow? I'm deadly serious here. I'm sick and tired of people who seem to live for attacking the country that they're in and then go out of their way to praise a totalitarian leader like Putin. People will say things like, oh, well, he has press conferences and he listens to people. He has 95% of the airtime in elections. And how do you explain the fact that a very large number of uh, journalists critical of the Kremlin have simply been assassinated, gone missing? Now, even if Putin isn't personally directing the orders, I find dubious, that's still saying something about the state of affairs in Russia. Russia is turning into a state whereby anybody seen to be criticizing the Putin regime is automatically denounced as an enemy of the state. Russia today is a network fueled by extreme nationalism. You just have to look at some of the behavior of their editors in the back scenes, i.e., anybody who tries to take a critical stance is immediately denounced as a traitor. This is the sort of environment that is in Putin's Russia. And I'm so sick and tired of people who praise Russia lavishly without looking at these things. You know what? If that's your position, go fuck off and go and live there. I mean it. I'm sick and tired of people who are just so hypocritical. And this is not about me saying, oh, don't criticize the West. I'm not saying that for a second. What I am saying is I'm sick of hypocrisy.